The morning of my mom's funeral felt like I was moving through glue. I remember the sky outside our little neighborhood church in Milwaukee looking flat and gray, like it couldn't make up its mind whether to rain or just keep staring down at us. Inside, it smelled like lilies and old wood polish. People kept touching my shoulder and saying the same soft things, and I kept nodding like my body knew the routine even if my brain didn't. My brother, Ryan, was sitting a couple rows back with his head down. We hadn't really talked much since Mom got sick. Not because we hated each other, just, life got messy. Work, kids, stress, and then suddenly Mom was gone and none of that stuff mattered, but it also didn't magically fix anything. I kept thinking I'd see her in the corner, telling someone to eat because grief makes you forget. She was always doing that. She'd fuss over people with food like it was her religion. I stayed near the front with my Aunt Denise and a few close family friends. The casket looked too polished, too expensive, like it didn't match the kind of woman who reused gift bags and kept a drawer full of rubber bands because, you never know. I felt my throat closing up every time I looked at it. I wanted the service to start, to end, to be over, and also I didn't want time to move at all. Then the main doors opened hard enough to echo, and every head turned. She came in like she was late for brunch. My sister-in-law, Tara, walked down the aisle with her chin up and her heels clicking like she was on a runway. Not a tear on her face, not even the red eyes you get from pretending to cry. She wasn't in black. She had on a cream coat and a bag that probably cost more than my rent used to. Behind her, she pulled in her breath like she was about to give a speech. I felt something sharp hit my chest, because it wasn't just the disrespect. It was the timing. The way she looked around like she was checking who was watching. Like this was about an audience. Tara stopped right beside me, so close I could smell her perfume cutting through the flowers, and she didn't lower her voice. "I'm here to make sure my rights are protected," she said, like we were at a courthouse, not a funeral. Like my mother wasn't 10 feet away in a box. I didn't even answer right away. I stared at her, waiting for the part where she'd say she was sorry, where she'd admit she was nervous and didn't know what to do. But her eyes were hard, almost excited. That's when it hit me, she didn't come to mourn. She came to collect. And standing there in that church, with my hands shaking and my heart broken, I realized this day was about to turn ugly in a way my mom would have hated. Tara didn't waste a second. She turned slightly so she could face the rows of people like they were a jury, and then she said it, loud, clear, and confident. "I'm entitled to half of what your mother left," she announced. You could feel the air change. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, just tense. Someone coughed. Somebody's phone buzzed and they fumbled to shut it off like it was a crime. I heard my Aunt Denise whisper, "Oh my God," under her breath like she'd just seen someone slap a picture off a wall. Tara kept going. I was family. I supported Ryan through all of this. I helped. I deserve my share. I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so insane it didn't feel real. Helped. Tara barely visited Mom when she was sick. She showed up once with a coffee in her hand, stood in the doorway of Mom's living room like she didn't want to catch something, and asked if she could handle stairs anymore because she'd heard the house might be sold. That was the kind of help she offered, questions about the money. I looked over at Ryan. He finally lifted his head. His face was blank, but his jaw was tight. It wasn't shock. It was dread. Like he'd been waiting for this and hoping it wouldn't happen today. That made me angry too, because if he knew Tara would do something like this, why didn't he stop her? Why didn't he warn me? Tara started listing things like she had notes in her head. I was there for holidays. I was there when she needed rides. I had to deal with stress. You have no idea what it's like being married into this family. Married into this family. Like we were a burden she carried. Like my mom wasn't the one who made extra plates, who slipped cash into cards, who stayed up late sewing a button for Tara's coat once because Tara didn't know how. My mom cared about Tara even when Tara didn't deserve it. That was just who she was. My hands clenched around the tissue I'd been holding all morning. My mouth felt dry. I wanted to snap back so bad, but something told me not to. Not yet. Not here. Because I did know something Tara didn't. My mom had changed her will months ago, after a situation that made her cry in her kitchen when she thought no one was looking. She didn't tell me every detail, but she told me enough. She said, "I'm going to make sure nobody can bully you when I'm gone." I didn't even look at Tara when the lawyer, Mr. Halstead, shifted in his seat in the front row. He wasn't startled. He wasn't confused. He looked calm, like he'd been expecting a storm and already knew where the shelter was. That calm was the only thing keeping me steady. Tara was smiling again, like she thought she'd just won by being loud. She didn't understand the difference between making a scene and making a claim. She thought the bigger the moment, the more power she had. And the worst part was how many people were watching me, like they were waiting to see if I would break. I didn't. I just swallowed, breathed in slow, and let Tara keep talking herself into a corner. Mr. Halstead stood up with the folder in his hand, and the whole church shifted again. It wasn't just attention, it was relief. Like finally someone with rules and paper and authority was stepping in to stop the mess from spreading. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't glare at Tara. He just spoke like he was at a regular meeting on a Tuesday afternoon, and somehow that made Tara look even more ridiculous. "We will proceed with the reading of Margaret Collins' will," he said. Hearing my mom's full name out loud made my eyes sting. Margaret Collins. She always said it sounded like someone who should own a bookstore or write a mystery novel. She'd laugh at herself, then hand you a plate of food like she was making sure you stayed in this world. Mr. Halstead opened the document and started from the top. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. He read out small personal items: Mom's wedding ring to my Aunt Denise, her old recipe book to me, a donation to the local food pantry she volunteered at every Thanksgiving. He mentioned the church itself, a small contribution to the building fund. All of it sounded like her, quiet, thoughtful, practical. Tara looked bored. She kept glancing around, like the rest of this was just a slow walk to the part where she got what she came for. She leaned toward Ryan at one point and whispered something I couldn't hear, but I saw Ryan's face tighten again. Mr. Halstead continued, turning pages at a steady pace. He didn't rush. He didn't stumble. It was like every line was placed there carefully, like my mom had wanted this exact moment to happen exactly like this. Then he paused for a second and said something that made my stomach flip. For clarity, he added, "This will be read in its entirety. Every clause. Every condition." The word condition hit Tara like a fly she didn't notice. She didn't react. But I did. Because my mom wasn't just the kind of person who left money. She was the kind of person who left instructions. She hated loose ends. She hated people twisting her words. When she decided something, she made sure it couldn't be misunderstood. My mind flashed back to a night in Mom's kitchen, months before she died. She was sitting in her robe, hair messy, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. She looked exhausted, not just from the illness, but from disappointment. "She thinks she can demand things," Mom had said quietly. "She thinks loud equals right." I didn't ask who she meant, but I knew. Tara. It was always Tara, pushing, hinting, making comments about what's fair. Mom had brushed it off for a long time, but something had changed that night. "I'm not leaving you to deal with that," Mom told me. "I'm not." Standing in the church now, hearing Mr. Halstead's calm voice, I felt like I was watching my mom keep her promise. Tara finally sat down, still wearing that confident little smile. She adjusted her coat like she was settling in for a long movie with a happy ending. And I sat there too, breathing slow, waiting for the part she hadn't prepared for. Because I knew the will wasn't just about what my mom was giving. It was also about what she was taking away from people who thought they could disrespect her, even on the day we laid her to rest. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, like when you feel the temperature drop before you realize the weather's changed. Mr. Halstead turned another page, cleared his throat, and the tone of the room followed him. His voice stayed calm, but the words started to carry weight in a different way. He began explaining that my mother's estate wasn't just divided by names. It came with conditions. Clear ones. Written carefully, reviewed more than once. As he read, I saw Tara's smile tighten, then pause, like her face was struggling to keep up with what she was hearing. Then he said her name. Not as a recipient. As a reference. The will stated that any individual who disrupted the funeral service, disrespected the ceremony, or attempted to pressure family members regarding the inheritance would automatically lose any potential claim. Not temporarily. Not subject to discussion. Forfeit. Final. The word landed heavy in the church. I heard someone behind me suck in a breath. Tara leaned forward, shaking her head before he even finished the sentence, whispering, "No, no, that's not right," like repeating it might undo ink and signatures. She stood up again, cutting in, saying it wasn't fair, that it couldn't be legal, that emotions were high and this wasn't the time. The irony almost knocked the air out of me. She was the one who chose this moment. She was the one who turned grief into a stage. Mr. Halstead didn't raise his voice. He simply kept reading. He explained that my mother had anticipated conflict and had made sure every clause was enforceable. Witnessed. Notarized. Solid. There was no room to twist it. Tara's confidence cracked right there. You could see it in her eyes, darting around, searching for support that wasn't coming. Ryan stayed seated, his hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles had gone white. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at me. He stared straight ahead, like he was finally understanding how deep this went. And in that moment, I didn't feel victory. I felt something quieter. Like watching a door close that should have never been opened in the first place. Just when it seemed like the tension couldn't stretch any further without snapping, Mr. Halstead paused again. This time, he took out a separate envelope. Smaller. Worn at the edges. The kind of thing you keep close. There is an additional instruction, he said. To be read only if the conditions just mentioned were violated. Tara froze. The church felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Mr. Halstead unfolded the letter carefully and said it was written in my mother's own words. That alone made my chest ache. He started reading. My mother wrote about respect. About knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. She talked about how grief reveals people, not at their best, but at their most honest. She didn't use fancy language. She didn't attack. She simply stated what she had seen over the years: entitlement, manipulation, pressure disguised as family concern. Then she addressed Tara directly. Not with anger, but with clarity. She wrote that she had watched Tara treat kindness like weakness and generosity like obligation. That she had given more chances than she should have, hoping things would change. And that if this letter was being read aloud, it meant those hopes had failed. I could hear Tara breathing faster before anyone looked at her. When I turned, her face had gone pale, her lips pressed together like she was trying not to shake. Her hands gripped the bench so hard her fingers trembled. The letter ended with my mother stating that no amount of marriage, noise, or public pressure created entitlement. Respect did. And since respect had been absent, so was any claim. When Mr. Halstead folded the letter back up, the silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy. Final. Tara swayed slightly, then sat back down hard, like her legs had given up on her. Someone whispered her name. She didn't answer. The version of reality she'd walked in with had collapsed all at once, and there was nothing left for her to argue with. Two people quietly stepped in to help Tara out of the pew. She didn't fight it. She didn't protest. She just looked small, confused, like she couldn't believe the room hadn't bent to her will. No one followed her. No one rushed to explain or defend her. The doors closed behind her with a soft sound that felt louder than any argument. After that, the focus returned where it belonged. Back to my mother. Back to the reason we were all there in the first place. The pastor resumed the service, his voice steady, and this time, no one interrupted. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief exactly. More like balance. Like the day had been crooked, and suddenly it straightened itself out. My mom had always believed in fairness, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. When the service ended and people started to leave, several family members hugged me tighter than before. A few whispered that my mom had been strong to the very end. That she'd protected us. I nodded, because words felt unnecessary. Standing by her casket one last time, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about humiliating anyone. It was about boundaries. About not letting grief be used as leverage. About my mother making sure that even in death, her voice carried weight. That day, I said goodbye to her knowing she hadn't left me unguarded. Justice didn't come with shouting or revenge. It came quietly, written down, signed, and read aloud when it mattered most.